How's it going, everyone? James Martinez here. How you doing? Hope your life is going great. And thank you for witnessing the things that we're a part of and for bearing witness of all the things that God has allowed for within my life. I know there are a lot of people out there challenged with their understanding, trying to shed some light on the things that He's allowed for my life to be become a part of. And over the course of delivering this message, I've found myself met with a lot of opposition, and perhaps some of you already know about that, but I have encountered the civil system in a way that has revealed to me a lot of pain and suffering that people suffer within the courts, or sometimes with the Attorney General's office, or different types of situations where parental alienation sometimes happens, or malicious parenting, things like that. And I know, there's two sides to every story, so I wanted to share with you all, since you've heard of the things that I'm a part of with God, and they're so fantastic and so extraordinary, but it also has come at a great price. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've suffered through, so that you understand that, I'm sacrificing to bring this message to life, but I also want to reveal those who are opposed, so you understand their position on this whole thing and what I've been enduring over the years. I was married to a woman who I believed I was in love with, and who I would have probably stayed married to all these years had we not had a falling out. But when we were married, I realized that we were both very self-centered, and we had a lot of desires that probably weren't the best. I realize now that back then I was suffering myself, and I was caught up in a way that I made a lot of poor choices, and it caused pain and suffering. I get that part of it. Fast forward after my divorce, 5 years later, when I, found all these really great things that I'm a part of now, and have been working with God for, the last 10 plus years. It just reveals to me that there's a battle in this world between good and evil, and that opposing forces, they are like that for a reason. I get it. I'm not mad at anyone, but I also want to explain that those who have been doing their worsts have been doing so misusing the system, basically persecuting me and doing the kinds of things that they say that they are within their rights to do, but it's completely unlawful. When you look at their tactics and their antics and the way they went about doing all these things, but sadly, it also reveals that there's a very corrupt system in place that would allow for such a thing to go on for as long as it has. Ultimately, when God called, He said, just stop what you're doing. I need you for this. And I went in the direction that He was guiding me in. And it took a while for me to understand everything that He was presenting. And then it's taken even longer to be able to produce the things that He's asked of me. Now, granted, when I said yes to the position is when I started going to jail. And it's a very complicated situation, because some people would say, well, why don't you just take care of your responsibilities? Well, I would pose anyone who would ask me that question this very question. I would ask them this: how could a person like myself, if they were given this gift, if they were giving all these really great blessings that God has allowed for in my life, and if you don't know, I'll share a little bit with you, but I've become a part of ancient history, and we're doing some very fantastic miracles. This book right here testifies to a great many of the things that we've accomplished already, from changing recorded history to explaining things like spiritual enlightenment and how energy works, the way the creation all works within itself. Like we've uncovered some really great things here. But my point being is that those who have been opposing have been directly in conflict with the things that God has asked me to do. So for anyone to say, well, why don't you take care of your responsibility? I would ask them the same thing. How would a person do what it is that God's asked of them and still be able to do the things that the world is wanting of them or demanding of them? And then even then, when you look at what they're allowing for my ex, this person to do to a person of faith like myself, to my children, to my family, what they've turned a blind eye to over greed or corruption, or what they say was it within their lawful rights to do the things that they're doing, it couldn't be further from the truth when you really break it down. Because if you know anything about parental alienation and malicious mother syndrome or malicious parenting, if you know any of those kinds of antics and tactics, if you ask any honorable judge or you ask any loving, faithful person in this world, they're going to tell you the same thing, that children need to be surrounded by as many people as they can. They need help. They need nurture. They need as many people loving them as possible. But when you allow for the types of things that they've allowed for to go against the things that we're doing, you really see the system for being as corrupt as it is. And it's tragic, because in this day and age, I know how fantastic this message is that we have. We're performing miracles. We're inspiring, millions. We're inspiring billions, countless people in future generations because of what the Holy Trinity has allowed for. And, you could be one of those persons who struggles with your faith, or maybe you lack faith, or maybe you find it too hard to believe, or maybe you don't want to listen to a person like myself because you're hearing all these negative things from people who are doing all these negative things. The point is that when God touches you and he allows for you to become part of blessings of something like this, your life changes, and that changes everybody else's life. And if you are anybody who's been in contact with me for the last 10 plus years, you know exactly the kind of character that I have. You know exactly my demeanor. You know my disposition. You know how I want to bless everyone. You know how I help everybody. You know how I don't want anything in return. I'm simply trying to do my job and help as many people as I can in the process. Meanwhile, the powers that be, those who have been doing their worst all these years, have been lining up to slander, to use things like libel, to use defamation, to go after people who would be, listening to the things that God is allowing for within my life, who are being inspired by that. They would purposefully go out and attack them. I mean, people have been telling me for years now, why don't I simply file a lawsuit on all of these people who are doing all these terrible things? The truth is that I haven't had time for any of that stuff. Since I've started, I've written 4 books. I'm working on the 5th one right now. Actually, a few more than that. I'm trying to produce 3 books right now. And every 6 months, I'm either in court or put in jail. And this has been going on year after 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 year. I kid you not. They have literally been coming after me every 6 months to basically put me in jail. And it's not like I haven't tried to find resolution. And it's not like I haven't tried to do things their way. And it's not like I haven't given them any money. I've tried everything I can to find a peaceable solution. And the ex, being as manipulative as she is, guys, I've nothing bad to say about anybody, especially when they're doing right. I'll be the first person to praise people. But I'm telling you firsthand how this woman acts. She's manipulative. She's narcissistic. She thinks that this is all about her. She thinks she's trying to save the child from a holy person like myself. God made me a priest now. And if you don't understand what that's about, that means that I'm a holy person, blessing God, glorifying God, witnessing to the Holy Trinity, making the world a better place. So meanwhile, this person, this narcissistic person I'm telling you about, has been trying to save this child from me all these years, and to the point of where it's simply abusive. But again, I've told the courts about this in Williamson County, and they turned a blind eye to the thing this whole time. They allowed for this debt to get as high as it has. Meanwhile, I told them I was called to do the things that I'm doing with God, and I tried to explain it to them, but they didn't understand. And so they've continued to put me in jail. And the ex, being manipulative as she is, convinced the attorney general judge, who was already a corrupt lady. If you don't know her yet, I assure you, she's a very corrupt lady. I'm talking to you as a very faithful person of God, right? This woman is very corrupt that she simply got on board with, well, this guy must be a terrible guy. He's not paying. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to do this. She was only listening to what this person over here was saying and not listening to the things that I've been a part of with God this whole time. And if you know anything about the way the AG courts work, they work behind closed doors. And that means that it's the judge, it's the representative from the AG who's an attorney, it's the ex-spouse who's usually aggressive and want to do as much harm as they can. It's them against this person already, like myself, who I have no representation. I haven't had any means. If I had the means, I would have taken care of the responsibility that they were trying to put on me. But the point being is that now here they are trying to take me and put me in jail so they can extract money. And if you look at, again, the big picture here is that I'm with God. I mean, I'm with God, and I have been with God for a very, 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 very long time. And we have been doing things in this world for a very long time. But this system and the powers that be gave a woman like this, and she's not the only kind of woman like this who are doing wrong things to people. But when you give people like that power to destroy other human beings, when you turn a blind eye to the welfare of the children and you really don't have their best interests in mind, then something like this can happen. And there are a lot of people out there in the world who are suffering parental alienation, who are being caught up with malicious parenting like this, and who the civil courts are simply trying to make a buck off. And this is, again, the biggest reason that the civil infrastructure of America needs reform, because if they can do these kinds of things to me, well, imagine what they can do to you.